All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for September 5th. All selectmen are present. First is a 6:30 p.m. hearing, petition for a joint pole location by Massachusetts Electric, National Grid, and Verizon on Oregon Road. Mr. Purple.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the representative for National Grid is not here yet. However, what we can do is I'll read the notice, we can open the hearing.
Please.
And then table it and do our other business until they arrive. Southborough Board of Selectmen shall hold a public hearing Tuesday, September 5th, 6:30 p.m. Call of hearing room at the Southborough Townhouse, 17 Common Street, Southborough, Mass. To consider a petition by Mass Electric Company, National Grid, and Verizon New England, Inc. to install a joint-owned stub P11-84 across the street from existing P11 Oregon Road as shown in National Grid Plan number 23274181 dated 6/12/17, and for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting ways. All interested parties are encouraged to attend Southborough Board of Selectmen.
All right. So we're going to table this one just for a little bit until the representative from National Grid arrives, and maybe they're here. No. Okay.
No.
All right. So, sir, it's going to be a little bit. They haven't arrived yet. So, all right. Next is Ms. Gallion. We're going to talk about consideration of Chestnut Hill Road as a two-way street, authorization to increase median cut at 4 and 7 Davis Road, and authorization for negotiation of easements for Main Street project. Ms. Galligan.
Actually, would you mind taking B first, since I know the residents are here? So
sounds good.
So 4 and 7 Davis Road, 7 Davis Road had asked to have the curb cut. It's an island in the middle of that road. It was through the planning board that was done. Just because it's different than a regular curb cut, I wanted to come to a public meeting just so they could have a discussion, make sure there wasn't any opposition. DPW has no issues with it. It makes a lot of sense personally, and I know it's got support from the neighbors who would be most affected, and I don't see anyone else here who has any issues with it, so I would recommend you just vote for it.
Any issues, questions from members of the board?
I have no issues. I do want to thank the resident reaching out to his neighbors to inform them what the request was, and for the neighbors taking the time to write to the board at the same time.
Do we need a vote?
Yes, you need a vote to approve.
All right, so I would move that we approve the increase in the median cut at 4 and 7 Davis Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Galligan.
Okay, so Chestnut Hill Road, and we do have, we have the engineer from Cornerstone, George Connors, and the proponent here, obviously the fire chief. What we were interested in is trying to make that end a two-way road. If you know where this development's going in, there's a lot of benefits for public safety-wise, there's benefits for the construction, and then for just safety as a general rule with the traffic. If you have any questions, actually, George would probably be better to answer them. But the DPW and the two public safety chiefs do recommend that you move this forward as a two-way road on that piece.
I mean, from my perspective, it seems to make sense. If it's for those new residents coming in, I trust they're going to want it. Is there any opposition that you're aware of from anyone else in the area?
I am not aware of any, but no one has contacted me about that.
Okay.
I don't know about the planning board,
Okay.
and George could probably speak to that. So.
What we have is a diagram before you based on you Google Earth pictures, it shows 2 trucks going up the street. Actually, there was one on the street when they did the Google mapping, and we simply copied that and put it alongside the other truck to show the impact. What needs to be done is, if you're going towards Northborough Road, we need to remove the guardrail and slide it back on the left side only, approximately 2 feet. And then on either side, put in 1 foot of pavement for pavement width, the actual traveled way when we get finished. The actual road will then become approximately 20 feet in width, which meets Mass Highway very low volume standards for such a road. And structurally, we would have longer guardrail posts going in that area. But as you can see, the lower picture, I believe, make sure. That lower picture is about 300 or 400 feet up from the angle where Chestnut Hill takes a sharp 90-degree turn. It's at a cross culvert. That's the area that needs to be, have the guardrail pushed back a couple of feet and the pavement widened in that area. As you get up towards the Northborough Road in the top picture, you can see that it's simply the widening of the pavement a foot on either side. The road will be dug up for installation of a water pipe and hydrants coming down to service the subdivision. And we will remove the existing pavement and put a base coat in. We will put the 1 foot on either side at that particular time. And then when the construction activities have pretty much ceased, we'll put the final coat on it. But the idea is that access from this Northborough Road entrance would be 2-way, and it would solve all sorts of issues with emergency access. And certainly if a fire truck was going down, which it may, even if it were a 1-way, there'd be some legal issues with that if there were ever an accident. So we're very much in support of it. It is a concept. We simply would like to get the blessing from the selectmen to go forward, do the actual traffic engineering design and the signage for both sides of the ends of Chestnut Hill Road during construction.
And just a couple questions first. So what's the current speed limit on that road, and what will it be if it were 2-way? And then will there be any lighting, and also will there be any speed bumps installed to hopefully slow down some traffic that may happen when that road gets busier?
I do not believe Chestnut Hill Road has a speed limit set at all. So it would be an automatic prima facie of, or however the heck you say that, of 30. As far as lighting, I don't believe so. I'm getting the shake. And speed humps, no, there's no plans for that. We have so many requests for them throughout the town. Mm-hmm. The only ones that we have are on Parkerville Road, and that was specifically done as part of the school safety study when they made Trotter School, built Trotter so that then they had a complex, basically a school complex. If that's something that the selectmen do want to ever look at, that's something that needs engineering design and a lot of traffic study to make sure.
Just the temptation is there. I think people coming down that road in particular and may have a tendency to accelerate. And
on that one little piece.
That was my concern with if there's a new development going in, if there's no real speed limit posted, if there's no great lighting. Anyway, so we'll see how that one goes. Other board members?
So,
Right.
if I may. I presume the cost for all this work is going to be picked up by the developer and the proponent of the project, not the town, correct?
Yes.
So, and as I understand it too, the section of the roadway from the entrance into the development up to, we'll call it House 10, which is currently 1-way, but that's going to remain 1-way?
That's correct.
That's proposed to remain 1-way. So I can see, once those 12 houses are occupied, those 12 residents coming to petition the town to make that section of Chestnut Hill 2-way, because that would be the easiest way for them to get downtown to, if they need to get to the townhouse, library, churches, et cetera, rather than have to, go out to Northborough Road and then back down Main Street that way. So I'd hate to be in a position where we're allowing this and the developer pays it, yet in the future where there's a potential situation where that other section of Chestnut Hill that's proposed to be one-way is made a two-way, and now it's on the town's dime to do that.
And that is definitely a concern. One of the biggest problems we have is that section of road is so narrow right now because of the trees being right up against the road, and we have drainage swales. We don't actually have a drainage system in that area, actually on almost all of Chestnut Hill. So to actually make that two-way and widen that out enough, it's about a 14-foot width right now, paved. So there'd be some significant undertaking to make that two-way, and the nature of the road would change so much, I actually think you'd have pushback from both ends of the street on changing the nature of the road that
Yeah.
much.
And I'm not necessarily advocating for that, but I just can see that proposal coming forward to a future board here, that,
Yes.
don't know
I
how
would
that would
agree
be
it
looked
could.
upon in the future, I don't know. Couple of other questions. I presume anything related to Conservation Commission, that will be included in the notice of intent?
Yes, other than the town being the owner of the property.
Okay. And last, for me, you had mentioned a water main that's going down that section of Chestnut Hill Road from Northborough Road into the development.
Correct.
As part of any, master planning with the water system, should that loop into Main Street? Would that benefit the rest of the town users? And I guess, would that then maybe trigger some other construction that would want to occur on that other section of Chestnut Hill Road?
So we do need a loop in that area from the Bolin Station, but we're trying to catch all of Fisher Road instead, because that's a very long dead end. So we actually have the easements on either side of Fisher, it's just we have to get it under the railroad tracks. So looping it at this point for only 14 homes, they're gonna have sufficient of what they need, and it's not benefiting the system quite as much or nearly as much as what will get for the planned loop that we're trying for.
We did discuss that.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Fana?
Coming out of the proposed project of homes, will there be a sign that you cannot take a left?
Yes, there'll be signage for stops coming down before you take a left onto the last leg of Northborough Road, be a stopped intersection.
And there'll be will there be a stop sign on Chestnut Hill Road to slow the traffic down before they make that corner? Is that-
Yes. Yes,
That it's two-way traffic ahead?
yes.
Okay. As far as the road and the residents coming before us in the future to make the entire road two-way?
Yes.
From Main Street to the end, can it be a condition of this board, Karen? That in the future, the residents cannot petition the town to make it a two-way?
That's probably a Mark question, whether or not the board could make it a condition that that section could never be put into a two-way.
The void that we're not addressing tonight.
Well, I'm not sure whether you'd want, I mean, that's a decision the board could make, it's also a decision
Well,
another board.
it would be my preferred,
Right, but that's a decision this board could make as the road commissioners, but then it's also something that a future board or something could
Okay.
also, reconsider at some point.
Right. I mean, I agree with what Brian is saying, that would be one of my concerns, that in the future, we might be faced with a dilemma that someone else might have to answer. So if we could prevent that from happening, it might be helpful.
Well, it's always
I
helpful
understand.
for the people coming to know what your intention was, which was that would stay one way. I mean,
Right.
because that's what I'm always looking back in all the old decisions for, so that would be helpful.
Because the other alternative would be the whole street would be one way.
Correct. Which I don't
Which I
believe
don't think
people
that
on the other end
be-
would like.
right, any more desirable. Thank you.
Ms. Macchio?
A couple concerns, I guess, for me are, were any of the residents in the neighborhood, did they have any input in this? Were they spoken to about this?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, because I know I did hear from one resident that had some concerns on it, so obviously, for us, that's a concern as well. Also, is there a reason that a discussion wasn't had with Concom? I know there's a notice of intent and so on and so forth, but with the wetlands on both sides, I just wondered if it might have been beneficial to have a conversation with Conservation in advance of coming here today, because I'm very interested in what they have to say on that as well.
Even the water line alone would require a notice of intent to Conservation, and we have not done that. We're focused on the actual subdivision, and the idea that a two-way road came up as a result of Mr. Morris's on the planning board concern about all the heavy trucks that would be visiting this site to construct the subdivision and the damage that it may do to the existing Chestnut Hill Road one-way section coming in from Route 30. And Karen and I went out and looked at that, and we certainly concur. So the roadway design first needs to be addressed by, is this a policy decision that's acceptable? And then we will go do our traffic engineering and our conservation permitting.
And this is also, which Mark just kind of pointed out, that we're not looking, this needs to actually have a hearing to do this and change this. This is to see if there's an interest in the board, if there's any possibility before we run the expense of the full engineering design, or before they do, to make sure that there was an appetite. And that was one of the reasons the chiefs and I spoke to them first about it, to make sure that the chiefs had an appetite and saw value to it.
Yep. No, I appreciate that, and I'm not saying there's not merit to it. It's obviously, I just was concerned about, the other residents on the road. It is a change, it is a scenic road. So those were just some of my concerns. Thank you.
In terms of the scenic road, we're not disturbing any trees, and there's no stone walls. It's actually an embankment road. I think Karen termed it a causeway, and that's exactly what it is. It's several feet above the surrounding topography and wetlands. We'd have no impact to the wetlands. We're working within what the guardrail footprint is now. The only thing is the guardrail gets pushed out on one side because the pavement would be under it for a section. So that guardrail would just get pushed out, so there's no impact to the limits beyond the guardrail limits that are there now.
Thank you.
All right, so my understanding is we're not approving something today. You're asking for our consideration if we'd be interested, or if we, flat out said no.
Right, we're trying to take a temperature of the board to see if there's a majority that are interested in pursuing this.
All right, so let's take our temperature. So, Mr. Calenda's interested in pursuing it.
Ask for any input from the public?
We can. So,
Could we hear from the
we
fire?
could take a temperature of the board, just kind of like remember what we did at town meeting?
Wouldn't you like to do that after you hear from?
I'm still interested. So,
Could we have input from the fire chief in case there's something we haven't heard? It might be helpful.
sure. So, Fire Chief, and then, sir, we'll hear from you if you would like before we, thank you.
Can't see him.
Oh, I didn't say that.
So I think Ms. Galligan pretty much, thank you. I think Ms. Galligan pretty much summed up our meeting. It started out as a conversation about truck traffic or construction truck vehicles in making that two-way. And the concern I had, and I don't want to speak for the police chief, was if we make it two-way for truck traffic, once that goes away, are people going to be under the assumption that it's going to be two-way all the time? So the access point, and I think to Ms. Faniff's point about the other section being a two-way future down the road, one of my concerns was I wanted to alleviate people maybe taking that illegally that live down there, that left-hand turn, and causing an issue down there. So we wanted to look at this particular stretch right now, not even considering any two-way traffic or anything else on the other part of Chestnut Hill Road. So that's kind of how we got to the point where we are right now. From a public safety standpoint, and again, I don't want to speak for the police chief, but we did discuss it, and any emergency vehicles coming from that end of town, particularly a police cruiser or if we had a fire truck by chance on Northborough Road and there was a call down in that neighborhood, we'd have to go all the way around to Main Street to get to that neighborhood, and it just makes it quicker and better access for emergency vehicles down there, so. That's kind of where we stand on the public safety side of it. I also agree, kind of looking at it, if you're just going to do it from a construction standpoint for the construction vehicles on a temporary basis, I think that's going to cause a little bit more confusion for people who are using that road after the project's done, and I believe it's slated to be a couple of year.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So there's going to be a long duration where they were looking to do that anyway. So to make that on a permanent basis, we were looking to do it. So, if there's any other questions.
Anything for the chief?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
You're
Sir?
Thank you. I'm Whitney Beals. I live at 10 Chestnut Hill Road. I'm one of about 8 people who currently reside on Chestnut Hill Road, or so. There will be more, even down at the southern end. I gather, and I didn't receive notice that this was going to be an agenda item tonight. I know it's not a formal hearing, but out of courtesy, it would have been good to learn that. So the current proposal is the possibility of making it a two-way road from the proposed new subdivision up to the railroad bridge, essentially?
That's my
Okay.
understanding. Is that correct? Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
That is something that my wife and I might be able to support. I'm not sure. I haven't asked her. But just for a bit of background, I moved to Chestnut Hill Road with my parents when I was 4 years old, and have lived other places, but have been on Chestnut Hill Road now since about 1990, and moved to our current home at number 10 in 1995 in the fall. On a daily basis, today, there are oversized trucks that go up Chestnut Hill Road. They ignore the sign down near the entrance off of Route 30. Sometimes I flag them down, talk to the driver, say, please don't do it again. There's a sign out there. It's against the town rules. I see Jordan's Furniture going up there continuously, all the time. They ignore my mild little warnings. The high schoolers bomb through there. It's rare that you see somebody driving 25 miles an hour. I've stopped calling our wonderful officers to remind them that really would be great, and they do from time to time have an officer up there, and I'm sure they issue some tickets. But we're extremely concerned about the amount of construction traffic with large vehicles that might come up the road if in fact there's not a two-way section down there at the end. It would compromise that road very quickly. And to make it two-way all the way would be very dangerous. It used to be. When I was a little boy, it was a two-way road. And then the saner minds prevailed and decided that those wonderful oak trees that line the road, which are probably 6 or 8 inches smaller in diameter than they are today, just made it too dangerous for 2 cars to be passing there. I remember coming back from a family vacation. We drove to the West Coast in a big Chrysler wagon pulling a tent trailer. Going back home, we went up Chestnut Hill Road, which was then legal, went up what is now the wrong way, and my dad saying, "This is the narrowest road we've been on all summer." So I think shortly after that, it actually became two-way. But I understand there will be a full-fledged hearing at some point. Okay, good. And I'll just point out the fact that any work on that roadway that requires the approval of the Conservation Commission also requires notification of the MWRA, because those waters are considered to be outstanding resource waters, because the open channel and the Sudbury Reservoir are still backup public water supply in case they're needed. So there's that extra little effort that really needs to be attended to, if in fact there's anything, and if the project had to go before the commission.
All right.
All right?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So Mr. Beal's assessment, I believe, if I have it correctly, is mine, that it would be a good thing to do, it would be a safe thing to do for that stretch. And I believe that, our fire chief agrees with that, so my temperature remains that it would be a good thing to do. others? Mr.
So I think it would be a good thing to proceed with the public hearing.
Yes, I agree with that. All right. A better way of putting it.
So.
Ms. Van?
I support the public safety officials.
All right.
I support, but along with Brian and Bonnie
Alright.
both. I appreciate you coming and giving a viewpoint I was concerned about, so thank you.
And so thank you, Karen. You have the temperature of the board? And Mr. Beals, if I may, so if there are a lot of trucks from Jordan in particular, are there any others? I mean, I wouldn't mind reaching out to them myself and seeing if I could, we could.
do. That's the only one that's marked. There's also a large white delivery van, a big box truck that comes up quite frequently. And I have spoken to that driver, and there may be different drivers of the same vehicle, so I, don't know if they're getting the message.
Okay.
I will also add that frequently there are cars that come down the wrong way, Chestnut Hill Road. Probably a daily occurrence. It's people who believe their GPS, little, the lady on the handheld phone, and I guess it's not in all applications that it's a one-way street, or at least the northern portion of it's one way. So, and most people, I can flag them down when I see them. I still work away from home, so I don't know how many times a day it happens, but I flag people down, and I shouldn't be doing this. But I ask them to turn around and please go the right way, and don't come up. So, and most people are very compliant.
Okay.
They say, oh, I was listening to my phone. I said, you got to see that huge international do not enter sign.
Yeah.
It's you can't miss it.
And maybe we need a few more of those, might help. But if additional signage may not be a bad thing if we can do it, Ms. Galligan, that it's a one-way. If you wouldn't mind looking into that, and Mr. Purple, if we can look into contacting Jordans.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Beals.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, sir, still no one from National Grid. I think at this point, you've stayed here for a good half hour. If the board agrees, I'd say we table this particular issue. I don't want to approve it. I mean, we approved it last time under a different owner of the pole, but unless anyone disagrees with me and you want to go ahead with it, what are your thoughts?
Well, he certainly took the time out
Right.
of his schedule to be here tonight, so I don't know if he just wants to
Oh, sure.
state, any comment that he had or
We
make
can
any
definitely do
point.
that.
So if
I don't wanna-
he's
I
not
don't
able
wanna
to
move
attend the next
approve
one.
this at all,
Understood.
so.
But I would like to hear from the gentleman. He did take the time to be here, so.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
would you like to tell us what you were going to say if our friends, if
absolutely.
the folks from National Grid were here?
Yeah, I think there might be a
And just your
safety.
name and address, if you would.
Arthur Minor, 27 Oregon Road.
Welcome, sir.
I think there might be a safety issue. They set the pole right next to it, about a 75 or 80-foot hickory that died earlier this year, and small branches are falling, and I'm worried about a big branch falling. And there's still a guide wire on it, and I thought they were gonna take that off. That will take, if that tree went, it would take several telephone poles. And I just was wondering what they were gonna do about it.
Okay. I would be very interested in having the answers to
I
those
did
questions.
Contact the
prior to them
town
coming.
about 5 weeks ago for the tree, and they made out a work order for the tree warden to take a look at it. And I tried to get a hold of him today, and he wasn't available.
Okay. Okay. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
No action this evening, so they're gonna have to advertise it again?
No, if you want to, you can vote to continue the hearing until your next meeting on September 19th, and we can reach out and set it for 6:30. And we'll reach out to National Grid.
But they'll
Have
be
them-
using the old mailing list, and there's 2 new residents directly across from Mr. Minor's house now.
Then you can tell them they have to refile. That's easy enough, too.
Could you postpone it for 2 weeks? Because I'm on travel starting tomorrow.
Well, we don't meet again until the 19th,
Oh, okay.
so we can accommodate your schedule.
Definitely.
Very good.
Thoughts?
Thank you.
Bonnie, what do you think?
Well, I have a problem when we advertise something
Mm-hmm.
and the applicant isn't here, but the residents make the time. I'd say have them re-advertise.
Others?
I think that sounds reasonable. I agree. Mr. Minor came and has been kind enough to sit here for half an hour.
Good stuff.
It is.
Well, I was unaware that there are new residents as well that are abutters, so certainly think that they ought to be notified. So
And if I could just make,
re-advertising is the way to do it,
Sorry,
then
Brian.
let's do it.
on the advertisement, I think it was listed as Oregon Avenue.
It'll be corrected.
Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. Great.
Mr. Purple?
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
excellent. Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Chairman's report. First of all, I would, anything
Karen
further?
had one
Oh,
other issue.
another one. Oh,
There was a C.
so we took everything out of order.
We did.
All right.
BAC. So this last question is just for Main Street. We should be getting our NEPA, I believe, this week or beginning of next week. I need the board to definitely assign people to do the, to deal with the easement process. I've got a letter ready to go. DOT is gonna review that prior to us sending it, make sure I have the packet all put in place so it's all set. I need permission to be able to sign the packet. And then if people do contact, they might not feel comfortable 100% just contacting me. We might, it might be prudent to have somebody else that can be contacted if they want to speak to someone and negotiate. And that was one reason I thought having Mr. Purple on as also someone who could speak to someone if they wanted to change what, wanted to discuss the negotiated, the appraised easement rates.
Makes sense to me. Others, and who would be interested? Mr. Shea in volunteering for this endeavor?
If it's the interest to have a board member involved, I will volunteer to be that person.
I think you'd be great, so.
Absolutely.
So do I.
Okay.
If you were absent, I was gonna nominate you.
It is. All right,
So if you could just vote it and then just whatever authorities I might have on my own, just so that I know.
Mr. Purple. So I will vote, I will move that we authorize the negotiation of easements for Main Street with the Board of Selectmen representative being Mr. Shea. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then what, do we have some parameters that we can set as well tonight, or no?
No.
Okay,
So, but we need to authorize Ms. Galligan to sign the packages that go out to the residents as prepared by the appraiser?
Yeah, if I could just have the authority to sign the letter and then also to be the initial contact person. So if anyone sends back, yeah, we're good with it, I can just take those and handle those without the, and then when they needed to be more negotiation, then we'd want to sit with somebody else too, obviously.
And I will move as stated.
all right, Bonnie?
I just have a question first. You're gonna send out a packet to the property owner. They have 30 days to consider whatever's in the packet. Is it 30 days from the signing of the certified mail?
Yes,
All right, so all 30 days would not be the letter sent, the date of the letter, but the date of receipt of the mail?
correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
If they don't sign it,
Yeah.
then there is a date that we will have to determine.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, what everyone's been waiting for, the chairman's report. So, before I turn it over to Ms. Brocchio, who I'd love to give an update on how things went for the Houston efforts, which was unbelievable, and you can give a lot more detail on that. What a great undertaking, and shows just some amazing, generosity, continued generosity of the great people of Southborough. So we also had a wonderful event, Southborough Nights, and that doesn't happen without tremendous help from many, including our police and fire professionals, keeping everyone safe, as well as our CERT and MRC members, including Carol Willoughby, John Bonner, Matt Bracchio, Lisa Bracchio, Robert Bracchio, Sagar Patel, Steve Wynott, and Darcy Hilbert, all of whom have continued to volunteer their time to be available for aid for others. We also thank Doreen Ferguson for another great year, and also Denise Meyer, as well as all of those who contribute to make this happen. So there are so many local businesses that have provided significant donations. I won't name them all, but they range from Capital Group Properties and Brennan Properties, Ken's Food, St. Mary's Credit Union, Tomaso's, New England Center for Children, once again, Bay Path Humane Society, the Cub Scouts Pac 1 made a contribution, Yamafuji, I mean, the list goes on and on. Middlesex Savings Bank, Yummy Mummy Brownies. It was really a great event of people coming together for a wonderful night. So want to publicly thank all of those who continue to support Summer Nights. And another wonderful event, Ms. Bracchio,
Thank you.
you helped spearhead that, so.
I actually had the absolute pleasure of Chuck Capello and Stephanie Campello from here in town. Stephanie had the wonderful idea to have Hope for Houston, for our residents to be able to come forward, and the goal was to fill one truck, a 53-foot trailer going to Houston, and I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with her on Thursday, and literally, I have to commend, obviously, the Capello family, amazing, and also all the town departments that stepped forward to be able to get this off the ground in a day and a half. The turnout was more than any of us could have expected. Southborough more than opened their hearts once again to a wonderful, wonderful cause. Unexpectedly, we had to have detailed police down there at different times. The traffic backed up on 85 with people trying to come in. Proud to say that 2 tractor trailers were filled at 8:30 on Saturday night. The last pallet went in. They left for Houston Monday morning. So, so much for so many people in this town to be proud of. All the officials, Karen and the DPW were amazing. The police department, the library donated books. I mean, the list goes on. I did send a note. Recreation and getting the word out. So a tremendous event that we all should be very proud of. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Lisa. That was, so I had the opportunity to donate a few things, drove in, and I thought, oh my word. I mean, your troop drive events are big enough, and this
Yeah.
one was incredible.
Yes,
So,
it was.
great work, thank you. And one other thing before we turn to the town administrator's report is that I have had some folks who have come to me, some from other boards who have interest in revisiting the town manager initiative that we had a while back. So just something for other members to think about, if that's something that we may want to sponsor for this coming town meeting. I know that's something there was a lot of interest in it, and it failed by, I think, 3 votes. That may be something well worth revisiting, and so just something for folks to consider. So, Mr. Purple.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of issues for the board tonight. Mr. Malinowski, Chair of the Public Safety Building Committee, and I chatted. Thought it'd be better for him to come in on the 19th rather than tonight. There'll be more for him to talk about, but did want me just to give you a couple of quick items. The architect contract is all set, signed, sealed. The full team is now on board. This board had authorized an amount not to exceed of $1.43 million. The final contract is 1.38. So it's $50,000 less than the amount that you had approved not to exceed. So that's good. The design meetings have begun. At this point, it's pretty much reviewing what was done under schematic design last winter, and they'll begin moving forward with some of the specifics in terms of utilities, HVAC, things of that nature in the coming weeks. Also, a letter went out to the Choate Field trustees, which is the chairman of the school committee, chairman of St. Mark's, chairman, the headmaster at Fay, and seeking their approval to use approximately 30 feet into Choate Field. Recreation Commission had already said that this was a good idea, would actually enhance the parcel. I've heard back from school committee, informally from all, that this is not going to be an issue, waiting for something formal from school committee as well as from Fay, but have also already heard back formally from St. Mark's that they'll do whatever we need to do, in terms of that situation. So things are moving forward with that regard. Also, on another issue, we did get the approval back from the Attorney General's office on the bylaws from town meeting. That has two things that are relevant to this board. The new bylaws passed for the new Municipal Technology Committee, as well as the new Economic Development Commission. Both of those are going to require appointments on behalf of this board. Municipal Technology is now changed. It's 5 members. However, this board appoints 2, school committee appoints 2, and library appoints 1. I am assuming that this board would like us to advertise to get interested candidates, and then I think there should be some collaborative efforts with the school and with library, to kind of understand how this board is all gonna, or this new committee is all gonna come together. And by the shaking of the heads, I'll make sure Mrs. Hale gets that advertised tomorrow. The second one is obviously the Economic Development Commission. You have a full committee right now. I am assuming that the board is going to want to re-advertise for this. I am assuming I will reach out to all the existing members and assuming that they will come over. It does not have the same structure that the other committee did. It is 9 members. There is no parameters on there for ex officio. There is no selectmen's representative, even though you keep trying to push that issue and pass it off to someone else. So that's something that the board will have to consider, and we can advertise that at the same time, that all 9 members are selectmen appointments on that. So that's something for you to consider. On August 28th, the Selectmen's Office, the Assessor's Office, Town Clerk, Planning Board, and Conservation were all served with a letter from Glickman, Sugarman, Neeland, and Grabowski Law Firm regarding 135 Deerfoot Road. The property is currently in Chapter 61A protection, and notification was sent to the town that there is an intention to sell the property. There is a purchase and sale agreement in place. I have asked town council to review this. I should have an answer coming back this week. There was a question that came from open space as to whether or not this is a bona fide offer based on the fact that there is a condition in the offer, in the purchase and sale, that is, so the sale is conditional upon, an item. And I've asked council as to whether the clock has begun. The town has 120 days with which to respond and match the price, the purchase price. If in fact we don't feel it's a bona fide offer, and we have 30 days from the date that it was issued in order to challenge that. But council had said that he will get something back to me this week as to his opinion on whether he feels that this is good as presented, and then I will get that information back to the board. I do know that open space has already, I believe open space has met, or will be meeting very shortly to discuss this issue, as will some of the other groups who are copied on this to get their input, and I'll make sure that input comes before the board.
Can I just ask, what's the date on that? So if it
August
is a bona
20
fide offer, where does our 120 days start?
August 28th. If it's a bona fide offer, 120 days beginning on August 28th. Okay?
And if we're calling it into question, if it is a bona fide offer, does that take into consideration town council's review of it?
Yes, it does. It's something you could do at your next meeting.
Okay.
Because it was August 28th, you've got 30 days from that
September.
date. So you will
Right.
have time before your next meeting. And then, Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I just wanted to mention today, we received in the mail a letter from the Attorney General's office regarding an open meeting law complaint that was filed by Attorney Brackett. And the request was denied by the Attorney General's office, so I just wanted to make,
And this is the one that was filed against Mr. Rooney, is that correct?
yes, it was alleging improper deliberation on
And-
behalf of Mr. Rooney.
And denied.
Denied.
There it is. So, gives me another opportunity to publicly thank Mr. Rooney for his outstanding service to this town. Okay, excellent, thank you, Mr. Purple. Consent agenda items. So, number one is to approve meeting minutes of August 8, 2017. I'll just gauge if there's any issue with any of those before we move on from anyone.
Good.
I'll abstain.
All right, well, let's vote on that one then. I would move number one. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
One abstention, okay. Number two, approve the employment contract for our finance director, Mr. Valentine. I would move that
So-
we vote to
So
approve
there's
that.
actually, I think, one typo in that I just picked up on the other day. Page 2, it reads essential duties of the principal assessor. If we can change that to essential duties of the treasurer collector.
Oh, there it is.
I guess we're not consolidating the
Multiple-
positions.
Multiple roles. All right, so with that, any other things you found?
Nope, that
Okay.
was it.
All right, so I move, is there a
I-
second?
On page 4, under 5, duties and subscriptions, desirable for her continued professional growth. I was actually going to ask that we take this up on the 19th, because there's some language in here that I'm not sure the Personnel Board itself has any jurisdiction over this contract, where, under the essential duties, on number 1, it says, based on the approval of the Personnel Board at a duly posted meeting. As far as the job description, I don't understand why the Personnel Board would have any play in this, if it's our contract. So I'd like to be able to sit down with Brian, Town Administrator, and Lisa, since she's our rep to the SAP plan as well, so just till the 19th. Instead of going through all of this line by line. I don't want to hold up tonight's meeting.
Okay, so Mr. Valentine is not here on the 19th.
Are you here? Or at least time to meet with the town administrator and Mr. Ballantyne before the 19th to ask my questions, and with Ms. Braccio, since she's a rep to the SAP plan.
But okay, so I understand your first part, but I'm not sure I understand the second part, as to what this has to do with the SAP.
Because the Personnel Board is mentioned in here, and it does say that some of the compensation reflects the SAP plan, longevity and other things.
Well, it does, because
Well, I don't want to go into each one of these categories.
Yeah.
I'd like just a couple of hours.
well, I mean, we've got time now if we
No, I'm
wanted
not
to do this.
prepared to do it
Okay.
tonight.
All right.
All right, so, well, two options, I guess. We can conditionally approve, or we just table it until another time. And even if you're,
Well, you can vote on it. I'm not prepared to vote on it. I have several questions that seem to be in conflict with the SAP plan, the Personnel Board, and this is our contract between a valued employee. So
Okay,
I'm not
so-
comfortable with it.
all right, so then I would suggest we hold, and once those are answered, we could still approve it without you being here, Brian, if
Yes.
that's all right, unless you, okay? Is that all right? All
Now,
right,
my meeting would be with Brian and
Yeah.
Mark.
okay,
That's
all right.
Roger.
Thank you. Okay. Number 3, accept donation of CO detectors for police cruisers. I'll move into number 4 as well. Reappointments of Mimi Luttrell to Metro West Regional Collaborative Planning Board, rep, term 6/30/18. Sarah Mikas to the Youth Commission, term to expire 6/30/18. William Estrada to the ADA Committee, term to expire 6/30/20. Roger Challen to the Municipal Technology Committee, term to expire 9/30/17. I want to thank all of those individuals for putting their names forward to be reappointed and continuing to volunteer for their town. So for those 3 and 4, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 5, approve, no, we're going to table number 5, I believe,
You're going
which,
to table the second bullet, number 5.
all right, so number 5, approve dissolution of the following ad hoc committees: the Public Safety Study Committee and the St. Mark's Golf Course Master Plan Committee. And we're tabling the Southborough Town Meeting Review Committee for this.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I can just speak to that too. So I had a quick email correspondence with Claire Reynolds today, who was chairing the Town Meeting Review Committee. The report is completed. Summer got in the way, understandably, and so they will have the final report to you sometime in the next several weeks. So at that point, I think then that becomes, an item that you could take action on. We could bring that back at that time.
All right, so I would move the first and third bullets. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 6, approve the common vitular license application for Hola Restaurant and Tequila Bar. Number 7 is accept a $1,000 donation to the Recreation Commission for the Harold E. Fay Memorial Playground rebuild. And 8, approval of MAPC paving contract award. Is there a second?
I have a question on 8.
All righty, Ms. Fana.
If I may, Karen, on number 8, the approval of the paving contract. Fayetteville Playground is part of this contract? I'm not sure I understand your memo. It's included, and then it appears that it's not included. What's included? Are they paying for it?
Yes, so the recreation's paying for us to pave the walkways and
Okay.
such over at Fayetteville, and the walkway price on that contract is good.
I just didn't know how you were separating it with the contract.
Yeah, so we're not doing any roadway, because I need to bid that.
And we're not paving the parking lot. That's not part of anything to be done.
At Fayetteville
Oh.
Building, well, we have to pave the 2 handicap spots.
But not the parking lot itself,
There really isn't any
where it's
lot.
gravel. Where you pull into Fayetteville,
Yes.
we are paving it,
Yeah, because we have to for ADA.
the whole parking lot?
It's only 2 spots. And then the space in between that you would need for access.
No, Fayetteville,
At the field.
at the house, at the
Oh,
building.
no, not at the house, not at the Fayetteville, I'm
I
sorry.
call that the
Not at the
parking.
village
I call
village
that the
hall.
parking lot,
in
I'm
the-
sorry.
In the park itself.
That's fine, all right.
Okay,
As
sorry,
long as we're
thank
not
you.
doing the parking lot. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, takes care of the consent agenda. This is a large crowd here tonight. I'm not sure where we're going to start with public comment.
I have other matters, though?
Me too.
Could
Oh, yeah, I'm
we-
sorry, other matters. That's
Could we
fine.
consider putting together a committee to look at Fayetteville Village Hall? Since we had the article passed at town meeting,
Mhm.
adaptive reuse, selling it. We have a parking lot that I know the recreation department is interested in. It's a separate lot.
Mhm.
So I think we shouldn't sit on this because there's other things that are involved, like a septic, pit holes and everything else that are gonna have to take place to see if what's marketable there.
So I agree, it shouldn't be sat on at all. In fact, town meeting gave us,
Right.
voted, they approved, they gave us instruction. We expressed, our intent to
Correct.
ensure that the historical facade that was our preference. It has not been put out to bid, is that correct?
No,
Mr.
we need to have a charge for the committee to work off of. So what I'm suggesting, within maybe the next month and a half, that we put a charge together, get a committee up and going, and report back to us.
And then what would the committee,
To evaluate the building for repurpose, getting maybe EDC involved, getting Shopsy involved. Committees have already supplied letters of interest, historical commission, so
Mhm.
put this group together and let them come up with a plan for the building.
okay, absent selling it, or?
Well, it's 2 separate parcels. there may be a way to save the parking
Or some of
and
it. at least.
adaptive reuse or cooperative agreement between the parties. But if it becomes empty, it becomes a liability. So I think we need to move forward on this. So we need to put together a charge. That's all I'm suggesting. If people have ideas, send them to Mark and address this sooner than later.
Mr. Purple, your thoughts?
Youth and Family Service, are they moving out of there soon? Sam has.
Yeah, Sam's been out for a while.
Right.
We're working on youth and family services. Facilities is getting some bids for that work to be done. The transformation, I guess, over at the Art Center is a little more than facilities can handle. The bids are coming back a little more than we expected. But that is something, we'd like to see that work happen, and get them in before the holidays.
Okay.
And if not, then let them stay through the holidays, given that's their busy season, for a lot of their efforts that they
Right.
do.
But after the holidays, insurance goes up when we have an empty building, and there are a lot of other things we need to consider, so I think.
Absolutely.
And maybe the funds, if we sell it, if we're lucky enough to sell it, the money could be used.
Right.
Toward another building.
Well, certainly, I think the funds could be designated and can
Right.
work with the
Whatever.
finance team to ensure that those funds, are so designated at a future town meeting.
Correct.
In a charge?
We can put a charge together. If you want to send me your thoughts
Yes.
as to who should be on this committee, I know that, historical has an interest, I know that recreation has an interest. Whether we want SHOPSI or, affordable housing. I could kill a couple of birds with one stone if we get certain people on there representing more than one thing. For example, Brian Schifrin. Not to throw out a name, but anyway, so, send me your thoughts and any thoughts you have for the charge. We can put that together, and maybe get it together for the next meeting, get it advertised, and maybe you can look to do quick appointments, at your October meeting.
And my main point is that charge has to be perfectly consistent with what was done at town meeting. It can't stray from what
Yes.
town meeting stated. It can't come up with new, restrictions or new
Right.
ideas or thoughts or ways to do this. It has to be consistent with what
Right.
town meeting voted and already approved.
Right.
So, okay.
All right, so yes, I can do that.
All right, public comment? All right, so I'm going to move that we move into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to ongoing litigation. Exemption number 3, as the chair has determined that discussion during an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board. The board will not return to open session. It requires a roll call vote. Calinda, aye.
Shay, aye.
I'm going to recuse myself.
So recused?
Ratio I.
All right, we are in executive session.